Hey everyone, welcome to Coffee and Crypto. Today we have special guest EmeraldGames with us. Really excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me again.
And the reason this is kind of an interesting topic I thought would be really good to cover because there's a lot of Web2 gaming companies and development companies that are really trying to figure out how to move into Web3, right? How to incorporate NFTs. Should they make tokens? These are a lot of big questions that are happening right now. And since I know you personally, you're very deeply involved with Apex Legends. You know, we'll be sure to have your Twitch information and your TikTok down below so everyone can go check it out. And I thought it was a perfect candidate for a game to talk about what it might look like trying to take that model and moving it over into Web3. And if my memory serves me right, there's even been some whispers.
There has been rumors. Yes.
So maybe why don't you give us a little bit of background about you personally, kind of what got you into Apex Legends, what you've been doing with it, and we'll kind of just start there.
Well, I've been a gamer since the early 90s. Okay. I think my first system was Super Nintendo, and it's just been like down the rabbit hole ever since. Always loved shooters, and when Apex came around, I had never quite seen a game with such a captivating storyline. Okay. And as the seasons came out and more characters came out, like there was more intense stories, like call them stories from the Outlands.
Okay.
Like the one about Horizon, who is a scientist, made me cry.
Oh, wow.
Is very emotional, motion driven, and very deep and well written, and it's just a very captivating backstory, which makes the gameplay so much fun for me.
I wouldn't expect that from a battle royale type game to have such an engaging story.
They've done a lot of work with making the backstory good, and there's even comics in the game that get released and you can read through. And so I think that has helped to build a community of Apex. And then they're very adaptive. So they're always coming out with new modes. They're always trying to think of new maps. And they came out with arenas a couple of seasons ago. I think it was season 10, I think that was when they dropped arenas.
Okay. Is that just like a smaller
amount of players? It's a smaller 3v3 deathmatch.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Instead of like 6 teams of 3 or whatever.
Oh, cool. Okay. And how long have you been playing it now?
Since season 1, so probably 4 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. And maybe before we kind of go down the Web3 rabbit hole, what are some of the things you really found the game has done well, other than maybe the story, if there's anything you can hint towards? And do you have any complaints?
I do find that they are getting a little bit too into releasing new things without fixing current issues. Okay. There's a lot of audio issues in Apex and a lot of game droppages happening right now.
I see.
And it always is the same little white screen, and it's something to do with like your video card, which I know it's not my video card. Thank you, Respawn, but I know it's something to do with every time there's an update, there's always a bug. And that's going to happen with some things. It's expected. Technology is not perfect. But I really think they need to step back. And I know you can be excited about releasing new content because there was a massive leak about a bunch of content they have coming out.
Oh,
new guns, new grenades, all this stuff. And way more maps. But that's great. But make the game
fix the other stuff first.
Make the game quality like it was in the beginning.
Do you think that maybe that's happening because they're extracting a lot of money from their players when all these updates come out because there's so much more to purchase and buy? And what are some of the things that, like, is it always new skins?
Gun skins, as well as they have charms now for the guns.
Okay.
So you can get charms for your guns, which you can't see unless you're shooting.
I get you, but it's like hanging off the side or something.
It's like a little cell phone charm, but for your gun.
Okay. So maybe they're motivated to continue to release this new stuff so quickly because they're extracting more and more money from their player base, which is in turn helping their revenue.
It is. Like they make quite a good penny off of Apex.
And what have you heard about Web3 whispers and anything that's happening there?
It kind of all started with a joke back in 2019 when one of the designers from Respawn tweeted, "Invest in crypto." That was, of course, leaning towards the release of the new character, Crypto.
Interesting.
But now it's becoming a little bit more real because...
Wait, so that was like a pun. There's a character called Crypto,
pun,
but it seemed like they were talking about
a cryptocurrency.
Oh, that's clever. Okay. Yeah.
And now they're like Vlad Panchenko, who is the CEO of D-Market, has been tweeting and showing a lot of interest in Apex skins.
Okay.
And so there's rumors that Apex skins will be open for trade on D-Market on OpenSea.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because, just to give people some context, Wax Network. Actually, the gentleman who created the Wax Network was also one of the founders of USDT, one of the first stable coins. Really interesting guy if you haven't looked into him. And he seen the issue in the skins market in video games where there was a lot of scams, aftermarket selling. It was very difficult. It was like this black market kind of side of games, which is true because game development companies don't want you, Web2 ones, don't want you reselling your assets and things like this.
No, and they're a little hypocritical because they do that. Apex has brought back
Right.
limited edition skins that weren't supposed to be released.
Because they're the ones collecting all the money.
And a lot of big streamers got very upset about that because it immediately devalued their skins.
That's right. So Wax created this network with games in mind to try to help with that whole skin thing. And then when you take a look at the revenue of like Roblox or Pokemon Go or Apex or Fortnite, people are spending billions of dollars on skins. And it's interesting, there's been a couple shooter games recently, and I like the way that they've approached it with blockchain, and this is kind of how I see it going for Apex, but of course I don't ultimately know, is where the skin, if you purchase the NFT asset, whether it's a skin for your weapon or your character, then you earn as you play. But without that skin or asset, you simply do not. And where I see an issue coming up is if it starts to give you advantages in the game. Like, let's say you had to buy an NFT laser gun, and that laser gun was way stronger, did more damage than all the other free-to-play stuff. I think there's going to be a balance that needs to be met there. But, like, some of the recent blockchain games, they're not doing that. They're saying, look, everyone's on the same equal footing. Right? A free-to-play player will be just as good with a sniper rifle as an NFT player.
There's no play to win.
There's no pay to win. But as an NFT player, you're earning currency while you're playing. Now, I feel like that's very entry-level with what they can do. Okay, skins are NFTs, and it's $1,000 for your NFT. You make $5 a day, if you put in a couple hours. It's not going to be crazy money, but then you're kind of earning back towards, the asset. That would be the easy way I think they can do it. What I think would be even more interesting is if they have an in-game currency that is specific to their platform. So you're not just earning like Ethereum or Solana through the NFT. And then that in-game currency could then be used for skins and things that can only be purchased with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So then it makes almost this elite status where you've got to buy into the NFT to start to earn the cryptocurrency, that native currency of the game, and then that has its own shop that you could use to only get special things. So when someone sees you, they're going to be like, oh, not only did you invest in the game, you've invested and played enough to earn enough to be able to buy that thing.
Yeah.
And then the next step to it, I don't want to get too far ahead of that idea because I think that's one we could talk about for a couple minutes, but the next step is a governance token. And having a 2-token system where you've got the in-game currency, but then maybe you get rewards for staking that currency or some different systems, and you get a governance token, and now you can actually actively vote on changes, updates to the game, what you want to see. And if enough players who hold that token want to see a change in the game would actually do it. Like, imagine if everyone voted to fix those bugs, and Apex was like, okay, well, 51% of the... We have to now. And I think that adds a really interesting element into Web2 games, because Web2 games, and nothing against them, but most of the time the companies don't listen to their players. Right? And we've all experienced this. It's almost a running joke in most competitive games about the development company. Oh yeah, they're not going to fix this thing, or oh, now we've got to deal with this. And I'm sure you probably even see it in Apex. People will complain.
Oh, people were joking about how, like, as soon as they got big, like, that's when the quality kind of dipped a little
down,
bit.
Right? And I mean, it's interesting because we're humans. So naturally, when a company gets, I say that, but let me explain why. When a company gets large enough, and you've got so many people managing a company, there's venture capitalists, there's shareholders, there's board of directors, it's hard for them not to want to just keep padding their wallets and keep making more money. So now the shift goes from quality and community into revenue. And that's kind of inherent with almost any business. It doesn't necessarily have to be in games, but we've seen it a lot with Web 2, big games. And with Web 3, it adds in this interesting element where I think this is why Web 2 games are going to have trouble, or Web 2 companies are going to have trouble, because how are you going to convince your shareholders to give up part of their revenue and move to this new model? I think you'd have to build something completely new on top of the existing model.
Yeah.
So that they don't take away, like, say the next Apex update comes out and they're like, oh, it's all NFTs. Well, now the shareholders aren't going to get the revenue and the directors aren't going to make what they would. And I think that's why new companies that are coming out with new games kind of have a bit of an advantage, because they don't have this structure and this revenue model that they have to follow. But at the same time, if we want Apex, and you said it's Respawn is the name of the company?
EA, who
Okay.
ultimately owns them.
Okay.
And Apex is their best game. It's their best doing game.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna have to see some adoption, especially if the people want to stay up to date. But I do think we're gonna run into some issues with revenue distribution and if they're gonna be okay with it. Like Apex seems simple to me. Do the skins, right?
And then they have the heirlooms now, which I
What
think
are that?
it's a new thing that they implemented a while back, and they first released the main character's heirlooms, and it's just this thing. Each one is different. So like Bloodhound has an axe.
Okay. Does it give you special ability or anything in the game?
It's just pretty thing. It's the pretty thing. Like Octane has like a butterfly knife that has stim in it, which is like the thing he injects himself to make him go fast.
Okay.
And you have to get heirloom shards to be able to get the heirloom.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it's like 1 in 500 Apex packs has the heirloom
Oh,
shards.
geez, so it's really hard to get.
Yes, you can technically buy your heirloom by purchasing packs of Apex packs. You can get them in like 10, 20 or something like that.
Oh, okay, but it's a random chance you're opening loot boxes.
I've technically bought my first heirloom because I would buy 10 Apex packs or 20 at a time and then do that. But I know people who've been playing and they're level 500 and they still haven't gotten their heirloom.
Wow.
But I feel like that would have been a good intro for Web3 for them. If they had held off on releasing the heirlooms and released them as an NFT.
Well, yeah, because it can still be pretty, it can still be cosmetic, but now you're earning from it.
Yeah, and then once they have it, that can earn them additional tokens.
Yes. Right. And I think that's why the adoption is actually going to be relatively easy when when companies are ready, because they're like, wait, we just take the aesthetic stuff.
They already have the
and
blueprint.
Make that an NFT and make that the thing that lets you earn in the game. It's not like they have to develop a whole new type. And we talked about this a little bit earlier about bringing something new into the system from a company standpoint. But as far as ease goes, it's actually easier just to work with what they already got. I just see that. I think those two things are going to clash, because if they're like, well, we're already making a ton of money off skins, if we turn them into NFTs, and this brings up a couple other questions too, is everybody going to be interested? No. There are a lot of people who don't understand NFTs, right? They think they're microtransactions, whatever the case may be, which is really just lack of education, because NFTs actually solve the very thing that they're complaining about, but we'll get there. Just like with anything new, it's going to take time. But if they just go, okay, no, we're going to keep doing all the old stuff, here's all the new things, that would let the people who are just interested. So I think there's going to have to be this balance of, do you just redesign your whole game and all your aesthetics and all your skins, and now you're doing the NFT crypto thing, or are you going to add a new component and kind of let people go that way? And that's yet to be seen, kind of how games are going to do it, and we haven't really seen a lot of companies test it yet. And I think once we see like EA or Activision or Blizzard or any of Sony, start to take these first leaps, then it's going to be like the Jones effect.
Yeah.
All the other companies are going to want to start doing it because the other companies are, and they're starting to see the amount of revenue they're earning, and
But there's definitely, like, on the consumer part, there has to be faith.
Yeah.
And then on the company part, there has to be a little bit of selflessness. They have to be able to
be
trust in Web3 and be okay with taking a little bit of a hit if it's going to progress the game.
That's right. Well, I think of another way that maybe companies aren't really looking at this. You could have a royalty fee on the transaction of any of your NFTs. So let's just say it's a flat 10%, and it's actually quite common to be between about 6 to 10% royalty. Whenever that NFT transfers hands, Respawn would actually get 6 to 10% of the total resale cost. So every time that's passing hands, so now if you think about it, it's like, wait, it only has to sell 10 times, and Respawn's made the full total value of the secondary marketplace's value, which is going to be way higher anyways.
Yep.
And I think once companies start having professionals, tokenomics people kind of break that down for them and show them, hey, actually, no, it's not. We don't have to give up so much revenue.
It's not as scary as you think.
It's not as scary as you think. There's actually ways for us to make quite a bit of money with this, but also make people happy. And then here's another question, kind of just veering off topic a little bit. Terms of service and resale stuff is a whole nother legal issue, because most games, like I'm sure Apex is probably similar, you're not allowed to sell your account, you're not allowed to sell
I don't think with Apex, no, because I've heard amongst my gamer friends, I sold my Fortnite account to this guy and I'm rebuilding. I've never heard of anybody selling their Apex account.
Yeah, and most people won't even talk
happen.
about it, because if you do read the terms of service, it specifically says that they own the account, you do not have rights, you cannot resell, and this is common in almost all Web2 games. So now you introduce Web3, you've got to rewrite your entire terms of service, because now as a company you're allowing people to resell. And then do you make your own marketplace? That's probably the easiest way, because then you can say, okay, reselling's allowed, but only through our marketplace in the game.
Or through a blockchain marketplace that you've partnered with.
That's right.
But CSGO and Dota 2, you can trade skins.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting too. But they and I know about CSGO, I didn't know about it with Dota. But once again, that's kind of, it's isolated within its own ecosystem and lets you trade between, which was cool. All they would have to do is put a monetary value on it, call it an NFT, add a royalty, and you're already there.
And the thing is, like, even if they made the heirlooms NFTs, people would still have to buy the Apex packs to get the heirloom.
That's right.
And there are people who are, like, heirloom hungry, and they, like me, and they want it. And so they'll spend the money. People will never not spend money on Apex. This is my experience.
Well, especially a lot of those games. I mean, if you look at it's kind of interesting when you start looking at the average amount of money that a player spends. Like, you can't quote me for it, but I think a year or two ago, Fortnite, it was something like, the average was like $600-700 per player. And we're talking about kids sometimes who don't even have a job, and they're still lumped into that. That's a lot of money for an average player to spend on a game. And then you're not even talking about the whales, the people who spent thousands and thousands. I mean, the new Diablo game is kind of an interesting example. I'll just bring that up here quickly. You can spend 6 figures on that game and still not get your legendary items.
It's painful. It's
painful. But imagine if that was all an NFT investment, and maybe you got super lucky and you could resell some of it, or you quit the game in 2 months. You know, I really hope to see Respawn and Apex Legends and Fortnite and all these really big titles start to make this transition, because A, you're going to get a way stronger community, because now people are earning because your game is successful, right? 2, people are going to be able to turn it into a living more. So instead of forcing people to become streamers, which isn't bad, a lot of people love it, but that's kind of the thing. If you're a pro gamer or you want to be a programmer, you kind of have to make videos and stream. That's it. Unless you have a partnership or you're like the best in the world and you're sponsored, and even those people don't. Right?
Unless you're Timmy or Shiv, like, go hire a team.
And even those people, in my opinion, don't get paid enough.
Oh, God.
Right?
No.
Some of the pro sports players on a lot of teams and games make like an average salary. They're not getting paid like hockey players or basketball players. That's a whole nother conversation, but I do feel like there's not enough money in there. This would let a player be like, you know what, I'm really good at the game. I don't want to be streaming all the time. I don't want to be on a competitive team, but I can actually make enough to pay my bills now.
Yeah.
And I think that will bring so much more people in droves, because companies already have the reputation. Respawn has the reputation. They've been around long enough. They already have the community. That's the advantage that they have if they can shift into NFT and Web3. You've already got the player base, right? You just have to kind of nudge people into it, and I think that will be a good way for us to see this space progress. And I just don't understand why they're not doing it now, because I see how much money they can make on the royalties, and they don't have to force people. right? They could be like, hey, we're doing this special crypto NFT drop with all these new heirlooms, and if you get them, now you can earn our new Apex token, and that token can be used in the shop for these super rare skins that are only accessible through that. So now the average player who's like, didn't really like NFTs, they seem kind of weird, I really want that skin, because then it's there's like a couple hoops I have to jump through to get it. It'll kind of create the same situation as the heirlooms. People really want it because it's difficult to get, because people want to flex.
And if there's enough interest, if they get enough people who are interested in it, and they have enough players who are now purchasing NFTs, they could have NFT access only maps.
There you go. Yeah, or special features, or kind of like Arena, they could have released a new mode where maybe there's even like NFTs or wager matches.
Yeah.
So now you could ante
In-game,
up your gear. So the winner of an Arena match wins a set of gear that both teams had to purchase.
And you have to be an NFT holder to be able to get into that battle.
Yeah. And that's why I think...
Which creates more incentive.
And it's going to bring so much more money into the ecosystem. Because I think about that. If it was like Arena, you said was 3v3, right? Yeah. If the two teams could ante up a prize that they agreed on, there are going to be teams that play for tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, they also have King of the Hill mode now. They call it Control.
Okay.
So it'll be like one small part of one of the maps, and then there's 3 points, and I think it's 2 teams of 4, I think.
Okay.
There's 4 teams on each side, and there's 4 teams of 3.
Okay. See, even like that could be very easily incorporated. I just think of the earning potentials for the players.
Oh, it's so high.
And I think the earning potential for the company is a lot higher than they realize, too. They just don't understand all these nuances. Like, wait, every time an NFT is resold, we can make a percentage of that. Hold on. Long term, that means we're going to make way more than releasing something every season where people buy a one-time thing, and then that's the only money we make. Now there's this constant engine that can be churning for them nonstop. It also doesn't force the existing player base to go the NFT route, because it can be like, oh, you don't have to get that stuff. You don't have to partake in that game mode. You don't have to worry about that rare elite skin.
You don't lose anything from not partaking in it, but you don't necessarily gain anything.
That's right. And I think allowing people to feel like they're in control and they have that choice is going to be important. But mind you, I do see some other games now, like Ni no Kuni is a good example. They're like kind of pushing the NFT crypto in people's face, and I'm a little excited about that, because I'm like, they're making sure their players know they're earning tokens. It's worth something. You got to connect your wallet to get these extra rewards. Like they're doing a good job at kind of forcing it on people. But I also think the other route is very valuable too. Not everyone wants to feel like they're forced to go down a certain route. No. Right? Kind of like what I think of microtransactions when they first came out. You say you had a really amazing game title you loved. You found a mobile game that was littered with microtransactions. That would ruin it for a lot of people.
Yeah, because you can only get so far in those games.
Yeah, and you have to spend so much money.
Yeah.
But this way, it would let people choose, you know what? No, I'm going to stay doing my normal thing, buying my loot boxes, trying to get my heirloom. I'll let the NFT thing kind of do its thing and see how it goes. But I think it'll also inject a lot of capital into the competitive side of things. Because if we talk about like a wagered match or a wagered arena match, who wouldn't be interested in watching a $10,000 match?
Right. Because they have their own Twitch channel. They show the tournaments all the time.
Right. And it's the teams that are entering up the prizes.
Yep.
So now the company doesn't have to come up with a $100,000 prize pool or $1 million prize pool.
I bet you more than a couple of whales would be more than interested in buying it and then being like, hey, buddy, want to play?
Yeah, exactly.
Just
like,
get their
I'll
best
ante
gamer
up
buddy
my
to go
100.
in, yeah.
I'll put $1,000 in. You put $1,000 in. Winner takes all.
Yeah, and then you just get your best gamer buddy you know to play for you.
That's right. Yeah, so I think that
could
really help inject a lot of capital into the competitive side of things, and it precludes the company needing to be the one to do all the world tournament structure and tournaments. And
they just have to have faith in their clientele.
Yeah, they do. And also, I find that the prize pools are always so low when the company does it. No offense to the company, but I mean, like, League of Legends is kind of the exception. League of Legends has decent prize pools. They pay out quite good. But they did that because they spent years building it and making so much money that they went,
Oh, that's the biggest esport in the world now is League.
Yes.
Like, there's...
But they didn't have $1 million prize pools when it
No.
first started, right? So I see, like, you know, I don't know, does Apex Legend have like a world tournament
Yes.
seasonal thing?
Yeah.
What are some of the prize ranges there?
I can't remember what the prizes were.
Okay.
I
Is it
can't-
money?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I believe it is money.
But then again, can you make a living doing that as a pro team? Probably not.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I think a couple of them do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But because they're streaming, they're doing like the whole thing together?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. I see a lot of opportunity for these well-established titles, especially like Apex, to bring a lot more capital, not only for the players, for the company, not force people to do it, but make it optional. And then Jones effect with all these other large organizations, because once we get Fortnite or Apex or any of these companies on board, I know what's going to happen. It's just going to snowball and start going to the next couple companies. Well, I'm sure you can tell I could ramble about this for a long time, but there's a lot of, it's interesting to see too, because with us in the Game Guild, we're getting people come in asking us questions about collaborations and projects, and something that's been happening recently is we have Web2 game companies, indie companies asking us about how to make their game Web3. And that's something I didn't think was going to happen as a game guild. I'm like, oh, we're in crypto. It's all about crypto. But now I'm starting to see a lot more interest from game development companies and indie companies who are like, well, I've got this really cool concept game. Like there's this one, we'll probably have them on here, and I think I'll end on this for an interview, probably in the next couple weeks or months. They're making like a Stardew Valley type Harvest Moon.
Oh, I've heard about this one.
Kind of game,
about this one,
right?
yeah.
It's really interesting. And he reached out to me, and we started talking about tokenomics and the model and kingdoms and how it can all be set up for the guild. And you know, but they started Web3, but there was a lot of questions in there that I could tell. It's like, okay, they had a game, and then they're adding in that component. I feel like there's going to be a potential industry there for consultants and helping companies figure that out.
Oh, definitely.
Tokenomics
When you're a
models.
trailblazer in anything, people are going to come to you like, what's your recipe? How'd you do it?
That's right. And especially tokenomics, because you're engineering a financial system. That's more, I think that's a good way to explain it. You're engineering a financial system. That's complicated. It's not as simple as, here's a token, you earn the token. Well, if you do that, the token's going to become worthless over time because you're just making more of it.
There's a lot of logistics behind that.
You need a burning mechanism. You need to incentivize people to use it within the game instead of take it out. You need to have more than one token, so there's a balance. There's so many complexities there, and it's going to be interesting to see, because Apex, Respawn, EA, they have the money to hire the experts.
Oh, yeah.
They can be like, okay, team of 100 people, let's get it done, let's do it right, let's find the most innovative current ways. It's not like they're going to be like stumbling around like some of these new companies.
No, if they wanted to, they could have everything rolled out in a year.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me again.
Definitely check her out on her stream. We'll have her information down below. Like I said, her Twitch as well as her TikTok and all the other socials. And maybe once we hear some more information about Apex, if there's any more whispers
I'll be keeping
about
my eyes on Twitter.
Web3 stuff, we can get you kind of back on and maybe do a follow-up down the road. But thanks again for everyone joining us. And until next time, cheers. Yeah, that was fun.